The Zephyrian Grand Council had ruled over 47 star systems for 3 millennia. Their crystalline spires reached toward the heavens of their homeworld, each one a testament to their technological superiority and unwavering belief in their own supremacy. Admiral Cathara stood before the massive viewing screen in the flagship Dominion's edge. Her 6 arms crossed in a gesture of absolute confidence as she gazed upon the small blue planet that had recently caught their attention. Another primitive world, she mused to her second-in-command, Commander Velox. Though this one shows unusual signs of technological advancement for such a young species. The humans of Earth had only recently achieved faster-than-light communication, sending out their first interstellar broadcasts a mere 50 years ago. To the Zephyrians, who had mastered space travel when humans were still discovering fire, this made Earth's inhabitants little more than clever children playing with dangerous toys. "Shall we proceed with standard pacification protocols?" Velox asked, his translation device rendering his clicking speech into the common galactic tongue. The Zephyrians had perfected their approach over centuries. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand submission, and incorporate useful resources and populations into their empire, while discarding the rest. Admiral Cathara's compound eyes focused on the planet's surface readings. Interesting. They appear to have developed nuclear weapons and basic space travel. Their population exceeds 8 billion, spread across all major landmasses. They've even established primitive colonies on their moon and the 4th planet in their system. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that humanity's rapid technological advancement came not from following a single path, but from their unique ability to adapt, improvise, and learn from failure. While the Zephyrians had achieved their current level through millennia of careful, methodical progress, humans had compressed centuries of innovation into mere decades through necessity, creativity, and an almost reckless willingness to experiment. The first transmission arrived at Earth's Deep Space Communications Array at 1432, Universal Time on a Tuesday that would forever be remembered as First Contact Day. Dr. Sarah Chen was monitoring the radio telescopes when the signal cut through space with crystalline clarity, its mathematical precision immediately identifying it as artificial. "This is Admiral Cathara of the Zephyrian Empire," the translated message began. "Your species has been observed and catalogued. You will cease all military activities and prepare for integration into our domain. Resistance is futile and will result in the complete eradication of your population. You have 7 of your solar rotations to comply." The message repeated in 12 Earth languages, each translation perfect, indicating an intelligence network that had been studying humanity for some time. Within hours, every government on Earth had received copies, and emergency sessions convened in capitals worldwide. President Maria Santos stared at the translated message in the Situation Room, surrounded by generals, scientists, and advisors, whose faces reflected the same mixture of disbelief and determination she felt. "How long until they arrive?" "Based on the signal's origin point, our best estimate is 18 months, replied General Harrison, head of the Joint Chiefs. "That assumes they're traveling at speeds comparable to what our theoretical physicists believe is possible. 18 months to prepare for a war against an alien empire that's conquered 47 star systems." Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the President's science advisor, said grimly, "We need to assume they have technology far beyond ours." But humanity's response wasn't panic or immediate surrender. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Ancient tribal instincts that had carried humans through ice ages and plagues suddenly activated on a global scale. The species that had once scattered across continents with nothing but stone tools and determination began to unite with unprecedented cooperation. The Global Defense Initiative formed within weeks, combining military forces, scientific communities, and industrial capabilities from every nation. Resources that had been spent on conflicts between humans were suddenly redirected toward a single purpose: survival against an existential threat. In laboratories from Tokyo to Geneva, teams worked around the clock developing new technologies. Theoretical physicists collaborated with practical engineers, combining humanity's greatest strength: the ability to innovate under pressure. While other species might have spent decades carefully testing each advancement, humans began pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a quantum physicist studying entanglement theory, realized that the alien transmission itself contained crucial information about their technology. By analyzing the carrier wave's quantum signature, her team discovered that the Zephyrians used a form of faster-than-light communication that relied on quantum tunneling through subspace. They're not just advanced, she explained to the Emergency Scientific Council. They're predictable. Their technology follows a single evolutionary path, refined over thousands of years, but that means they might not be prepared for approaches they've never encountered. Meanwhile, military strategists studied every piece of historical data they could find. How had smaller forces defeated larger ones throughout history? How had technological underdogs overcome superior enemies? The answers pointed to tactics the Zephyrians had likely never encountered: guerrilla warfare, asymmetric responses, and the human tendency to find unconventional solutions to impossible problems. 16 months before the projected alien arrival, humanity achieved something unprecedented in their history. Not just cooperation, but genuine unity of purpose. Former enemies shared intelligence, resources flowed freely between nations, and every human being understood that their species' survival depended on working together. The orbital defense platforms began construction immediately, using designs that combined human ingenuity with reverse-engineered alien technology gleaned from the transmission itself. These weren't just weapons, but statements of intent. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. As Admiral Cathara's fleet approached the edge of the solar system, her confidence remained absolute. The readings showed a species that had achieved basic spaceflight, nothing more. Their nuclear weapons were primitive, their defenses non-existent by galactic standards. This would be another routine conquest, adding Earth's resources and population to the Zephyrian Empire. What she couldn't see from her distant sensors was the transformation that had occurred on Earth. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had evolved. The same species that had once fought with sticks and stones had become something new, something that combined their ancestral cunning with technology that no other race had ever developed. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shatter the Zephyrians' assumptions about primitive species and demonstrate why humanity had survived every extinction event their planet had thrown at them. The arrogant aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Admiral Cathara's massive fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system with the precision of a military parade. 200 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive blue-silver alloy that had become synonymous with Zephyrian dominance across the galaxy. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, weapons capable of glassing entire continents, shields that had never been penetrated by any known force. Scans show minimal defensive capabilities, reported Commander Velox, his 4 eyes studying the tactical displays. Several primitive orbital structures, basic nuclear-powered vessels, and what appears to be a communications network. Nothing that poses any threat to our forces. The Admiral's satisfaction was complete. Another easy conquest for the Empire. Open a channel to the planet. Let them witness our power before we begin the integration process. What the Zephyrians saw on their sensors told only part of the story. Yes, humanity's visible defenses were modest compared to galactic standards, but hidden throughout the solar system, camouflaged installations waited in silence. Asteroid mining operations that weren't mining asteroids at all, but manufacturing facilities producing weapons based on principles no other species had considered. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as humanity's most audacious gambit prepared to unfold. Around her, representatives from every nation monitored systems that would have been impossible to imagine just 2 years earlier. Zephyrian fleet has achieved optimal positioning, reported Colonel Martinez from his station. They're arranging themselves exactly as our psychological profiles predicted. Classic dominant species formation, maximum intimidation factor, minimal tactical flexibility. The human strategy was based on a simple observation. Every successful species developed patterns, and patterns could be exploited. The Zephyrians had conquered, through overwhelming technological superiority, for so long that they had forgotten how to fight an unpredictable enemy. Admiral Cathara's image appeared on screens worldwide as she broadcast her ultimatum. Her insectoid features were striking even by galactic standards. 6 arms ending in precise manipulator claws, compound eyes that could see across multiple spectrums, and an air of absolute authority that had cowed dozens of species. People of Earth, her translated voice resonated across every communication network on the planet. You stand before the might of the Zephyrian Empire. Your primitive civilization will be absorbed into our domain. Those who prove useful will serve. Those who do not will be discarded. Surrender immediately and your suffering will be minimal. President Santos stepped forward to respond. Her image broadcast not just to Earth, but to the alien fleet itself. Admiral Cathara, we appreciate your generous offer. However, we must respectfully decline. The silence that followed was profound. In 3,000 years of expansion, no species had ever simply said no to the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Cathara's compound eyes focused with new interest on the human female displaying such remarkable stupidity. Perhaps you failed to understand, the Admiral replied, her tone carrying the patience of someone explaining obvious facts to a child. Resistance is not an option. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your defenses cannot withstand our assault. Submit now, or watch your species burn. President Santos smiled, and something in that expression should have warned the Admiral that she was missing crucial information. Admiral, you've studied our history. You know we're a young species, barely 200,000 years old. But did you know that in that time our planet has tried to kill us 97 different ways? The transmission continued as humanity's leader began listing Earth's attempts at extinction. Ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague, famine, drought, and disasters that would have ended most species. Each time we adapted. Each time we survived. Each time we became stronger. Admiral Cathara was growing impatient. Your history is irrelevant. You face the Zephyrian Empire now, not natural disasters. You're right, President Santos agreed. Natural disasters don't think. They can't plan or strategize. They just try to kill you with brute force. Her smile broadened. You're going to be much easier to deal with. The insult was so unexpected that Admiral Cathara actually paused. No conquered species had ever suggested that the mighty Zephyrian Empire was inferior to random cosmic events. The audacity was almost impressive. Demonstrate our superiority, she ordered her gunners. Destroy their largest military installation. The targeting computers locked onto NORAD, and the Admiral's personal flagship charged its primary weapon. The massive particle beam that lanced out could have carved through a mountain, and it struck the facility with pinpoint accuracy. For a moment, the explosion lit up the North American continent as the underground complex was vaporized. Now, Admiral Cathara broadcast to Earth, "Witness the futility of resistance." President Santos appeared again, broadcasting from a new location. "Thank you for the demonstration, Admiral. We were curious about your weapons capabilities. Now we know." She paused, consulting a tablet. "Our scientists estimate you can destroy approximately 47 major installations before your weapons require recharging. Unfortunately for you, we have over 3,000 similar facilities spread across the planet, the Moon, Mars, and several asteroids throughout our system." This was humanity's first revelation. They had learned to think in scales that the Zephyrians, despite their technological superiority, had never considered necessary. While the aliens built superior individual weapons, humans had built redundant systems that could absorb massive damage and continue functioning. Admiral Cathara's confidence wavered slightly. "Your installations are irrelevant. We will simply bombardment your cities until you surrender." "Which cities?" President Santos asked. "We've spent the last 18 months relocating our critical infrastructure underground and into space. Go ahead and glass the surface. You'll be destroying empty buildings while 8 billion humans continue working from facilities you can't even detect." The second revelation was even more disturbing. While the Zephyrians had assumed humans would cower in their cities awaiting salvation, humanity had simply moved. The surface installations the aliens could see were decoys, drawing attention away from the real centers of human civilization now hidden throughout the solar system. "Impossible," Admiral Cathara stated. "No species achieves such massive logistical coordination in mere months. Most species probably don't have our particular type of stubbornness," President Santos replied. "We've been preparing for extinction events for our entire evolutionary history. Moving our civilization to survive an alien invasion was just another Tuesday for us. Commander Velox was studying his instruments with growing alarm. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. These aren't just defensive installations. They're weapons platforms, and they're using technology I don't recognize." Admiral Cathara felt the first whisper of genuine concern. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicated a primitive species barely capable of spaceflight." "Your intelligence was correct," President Santos confirmed. 18 months ago. "But you made a crucial error in your calculations, Admiral. You assumed we would remain static while waiting for your arrival. Instead, we spent that time doing what humans do best: learning, adapting, and preparing to fight for our lives." As if summoned by her words, space around the Zephyrian fleet suddenly erupted with new contacts. Vessels that had been invisible to alien sensors decloaked, revealing designs that looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. These were humanity's ghost ships, built using principles that combined human engineering with revolutionary theories about physics that the Zephyrians had never explored. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin, and Admiral Cathara was starting to realize that she had made the greatest tactical error in Zephyrian military history. She had given humanity time to prepare. The first shots fired in defense of Earth came not from massive cannons or nuclear missiles, but from weapons that violated everything the Zephyrians understood about warfare. Humanity's ghost ships materialized around Admiral Cathara's fleet like predators emerging from tall grass, their hulls rippling with technology that seemed to bend physics itself. "What are those vessels?" Commander Velox demanded, his voice carrying the first notes of panic. "They're not showing up on any of our classification systems." Dr. Yuki Tanaka had spent 18 months developing the answer to that question. While the Zephyrians had perfected traditional energy weapons and particle beams, humanity had taken a completely different approach. The ghost ships carried weapons based on quantum uncertainty principles, devices that didn't simply destroy matter, but convinced it that it had never existed in the first place. Admiral Cathara watched in growing alarm as her sensors registered something impossible. The human vessels appeared to be occupying multiple positions simultaneously, their quantum signatures scattered across probability space like echoes of ships that might or might not be real. "Target the lead vessel," she ordered, but her gunners were already discovering humanity's first strategic advantage. Traditional targeting computers were designed to lock onto objects with definite positions and velocities. The human ships existed in quantum superposition, making it nearly impossible to predict where they would be when weapons fire arrived. The Zephyrian particle beams lanced through empty space where the ghost ships had been nanoseconds earlier. In response, humanity's weapons fired back with something that shouldn't have been possible: bullets that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, following trajectory paths that curved through folded spacetime. The first Zephyrian cruiser simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but erased from reality as if it had never been built. Admiral Cathara's compound eyes widened as her sensors registered the impossible, a complete absence where a massive warship had been moments before. "How is this possible?" she demanded. President Santos's voice came through the communication channel with what sounded like genuine sympathy. "We asked our quantum physicists the same question. Apparently, when you're fighting for the survival of your entire species, you become willing to weaponize theories that other races consider too dangerous to test." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. The Zephyrians fought with precision, overwhelming firepower, and tactics refined over 3 millennia. Humanity fought with chaos, improvisation, and weapons that sometimes didn't work at all but occasionally achieved impossible results. Commander Sarah Mitchell piloted the ghost ship Uncertainty Principle through a formation of Zephyrian destroyers, her vessel existing in 17 different probability states simultaneously. To outside observers, it looked like she was flying through solid matter. In quantum reality, she was simply choosing the probability where her ship occupied the spaces between enemy vessels. "Ghost leader to all ships," she transmitted across quantum encrypted channels. "Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to convince them that humans are too dangerous to be worth conquering." This was humanity's core strategy, born from psychological analysis of every successful Zephyrian conquest in recorded history. The aliens didn't simply overwhelm their enemies with superior force. They relied on predictable responses from species that fought according to standard galactic warfare principles. When faced with unpredictable tactics from beings who seemed to ignore physics itself, even superior technology became less effective. Admiral Cathara was learning this lesson painfully. Her fleet's weapons were individually more powerful than anything humanity possessed, but the humans weren't fighting individual battles. They fought as a single organism, their vessels coordinating through quantum entanglement in ways that made their entire fleet respond as one massive, adaptive weapon system. "Sir," Commander Velox reported, "we're losing ships faster than our tactical computers can adapt. These humans are using strategies that our warfare models don't account for." The Zephyrian Empire had conquered through technological superiority and overwhelming force, always facing enemies who fought according to predictable military doctrines. They had never encountered a species that treated warfare as an improvisational art form, making up new tactics in real time based on whatever seemed most likely to work. Humanity's second wave of attacks came from unexpected directions. Captain Luis Rodriguez commanded a squadron of vessels that had been disguised as asteroids, their hulls embedded with actual rock and metal to fool sophisticated sensors. His ships emerged from the asteroid belt like ancient Earth submarines surfacing among enemy destroyers. "This is Captain Rodriguez to all hunter-killer groups," he transmitted. "Target their command vessels. Let's see how well they fight when they can't coordinate." The hidden asteroid ships carried humanity's most conventional weapons, nuclear devices, but deployed in ways that no galactic military had ever considered. Instead of trying to penetrate Zephyrian shields with brute force, human engineers had developed nuclear weapons that existed partially in subspace, allowing them to bypass energy barriers entirely. Admiral Cathara felt her flagship shudder as impossible explosions somehow occurred inside her shields, damaging systems that should have been completely protected. "Status report. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 18, came the response. "How are they getting past our defensive grids?" The answer would have horrified the Admiral if she had understood it. Humanity had analyzed the quantum signatures of Zephyrian shield technology from their initial transmission and developed weapons specifically designed to exploit dimensional weaknesses in alien defensive systems. While other species tried to overwhelm Zephyrian shields, humans had simply learned to ignore them. But the most devastating human weapon wasn't technological at all. It was psychological. As the battle raged, broadcasts from Earth continued transmitting to the Zephyrian fleet, showing not a panicked population, but humans calmly going about their daily lives while their species fought for survival in space above their heads. "Admiral," President Santos's voice came through again. "Your fleet has destroyed 37 of our vessels. We've eliminated 42 of yours. At this rate, we'll both be severely damaged long before either side achieves victory." Admiral Cathara's response was immediate. "We will fight until your species is eliminated." "Will you?" the President asked. "Because our projections show that even if you win, you'll lose at least 60% of your fleet doing it. Then you'll need to occupy a system full of humans who have proven they can develop weapons your technology can't counter. How many ships will you lose to resistance fighters who can weaponize quantum mechanics?" This was humanity's masterstroke. Not just proving they could fight, but demonstrating that conquering Earth would cost more than any possible benefit. The Zephyrian Empire had thrived by incorporating useful resources and populations while maintaining their own strength. A victory that crippled their fleet would be strategically worse than a defeat. Commander Velox was studying long-range sensors when he made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Sol system. It appears the humans have been constructing something enormous while we've been fighting." Admiral Cathara's confidence finally began to crack as she realized the truth. The battle around Earth wasn't humanity's main defense. It was a distraction, buying time for something far more dangerous to come online. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood before humanity's greatest achievement and most desperate gamble. The Stellar Resonance Array stretched across 7 kilometers of excavated lunar rock, its crystalline components humming with energy that made the air itself vibrate. Around her, teams of scientists from every nation worked with the focused intensity of people who knew that the next few hours would determine whether humanity survived as a free species. "Final systems check complete," reported Dr. Patel from his station. "The array is ready for activation." Admiral Cathara's fleet continued its deadly dance with humanity's ghost ships, neither side gaining decisive advantage. But the Admiral's tactical officers were increasingly focused on the massive energy readings emanating from Earth's moon. What they were detecting shouldn't have been possible from a species that had achieved spaceflight only decades earlier. Energy output is equivalent to a medium-sized star, Commander Velox reported, his voice tight with disbelief. Admiral, I recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance. But Admiral Cathera's pride wouldn't allow retreat. The Zephyrian Empire had never withdrawn from any system, never admitted that any species possessed technology beyond their understanding. Continue the attack. Whatever they're building, we'll destroy it before they can complete it. What the Zephyrians didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength had always been their willingness to attempt the impossible when faced with extinction. The stellar resonance array was based on theoretical physics that most species would have dismissed as too dangerous to test. It was designed to weaponize the quantum vacuum itself, turning empty space into humanity's ally. President Santos appeared on communications channels one final time, her expression grave. Admiral Cathera, I'm going to offer you something no species in galactic history has ever offered the Zephyrian Empire. One last chance to withdraw peacefully. The Admiral's response was immediate. Your species will submit or be destroyed. There are no other options. I was afraid you'd say that, President Santos replied. Dr. Tanaka, you are authorized to activate the array. On Luna's surface, Dr. Tanaka placed her hand on the activation controls. The stellar resonance array represented 18 months of humanity's most brilliant minds working together, combining quantum mechanics, astrophysics, and engineering principles that pushed beyond the boundaries of known science. It was designed to do something that had never been attempted: communicate with space itself. The array activated with a pulse that rippled through dimensions humanity had only recently learned to perceive. Across the Sol system, quantum fields that had remained stable for billions of years suddenly began to fluctuate in response to signals from a species that had learned to speak the universe's fundamental language. Admiral Cathera felt her flagship shudder as space around the Zephyrian fleet began to change. Gravitational fields that had been constant started shifting, creating currents of distorted space-time that made navigation increasingly difficult. What are they doing? The answer came from humanity's most audacious realization: space wasn't empty. It was full of quantum energy and virtual particles that could be influenced by the right frequencies. The stellar resonance array was convincing the vacuum of space to become hostile to any technology that didn't originate from Earth. Zephyrian engines, which had operated flawlessly for thousands of years, began experiencing inexplicable malfunctions. Shields flickered as the quantum foundations they relied upon shifted. Weapon systems designed to channel energy through subspace found that subspace itself was no longer cooperating. Impossible, Admiral Cathera breathed. They're altering local spacetime. No species achieves this level of fundamental physics manipulation. Commander Velox's instruments were registering phenomena that violated his understanding of physics. Admiral, space around our fleet is becoming actively hostile to our presence. It's as if reality itself is rejecting our technology. But humanity's mastery over quantum mechanics went beyond simple technological disruption. The real genius of the stellar resonance array was its ability to create localized regions where human technology worked more efficiently while alien systems failed. Humanity had turned their home system into a technological environment optimized for their own science while becoming increasingly inhospitable to anyone else's. Captain Sarah. Mitchell felt her ghost ship respond with new vigor as quantum fields around Earth began favoring human technology. The uncertainty principle shed its probability scatter and materialized fully, its weapons now operating at efficiency levels that should have been impossible. All human vessels, she transmitted. The array is online. Local space is now configured for optimal human technology performance. All Zephyrian systems are operating at diminishing efficiency. The battle's momentum shifted dramatically as humanity's fleet gained advantages they had never possessed before. Weapons that had been experimental became devastatingly effective. Engines that had strained to match Zephyrian performance now outpaced their alien counterparts. Shields that had barely functioned suddenly became nearly impenetrable barriers. Admiral Cathera watched in horror as her technological superiority evaporated. Her weapons were losing power. Her shields were failing. and her ships were becoming sluggish as the very fabric of space turned against them. How is this possible? No species achieves this level of environmental control. President Santos's voice came through the communication channel with what sounded like genuine regret. Admiral, you're right. No species has ever achieved this level of environmental control. But then, no species has ever been human. The revelation was staggering in its implications. While other races had developed technology to work within universal physical laws, humanity had developed technology to modify those laws locally. They hadn't just built better weapons. They had learned to create regions of space where human physics worked differently than the physics everyone else relied upon. Commander Velox was now reporting catastrophic failures throughout the fleet. Admiral, we're losing ships to fundamental system failures. Our technology is becoming incompatible with local space-time conditions. But the most devastating aspect of humanity's trap wasn't the technological disadvantage they had created for the Zephyrians. It was the realization that this was only the beginning. If humans could alter physics in their home system, what would stop them from doing the same thing in Zephyrian territory? Dr. Tanaka's voice came through on all frequencies as the array reached full power. Admiral Cathara, you're currently experiencing a localized alteration of quantum vacuum fluctuations. This is reversible technology. We can restore normal space-time conditions to your fleet immediately. The offer hung in space like a lifeline, but Admiral Cathara understood its true meaning. Humanity wasn't just demonstrating their ability to defend themselves. They were proving they could project this capability anywhere in the galaxy, potentially turning every Zephyrian system against its own occupants. What are your terms? Admiral Cathara asked, her voice carrying the bitter taste of the first military defeat in Zephyrian history. President Santos's response was carefully measured. We want to be left alone, Admiral. We want the Zephyrian Empire to forget that Earth exists. In exchange, we'll forget that we've learned how to make your technology stop working anywhere in the galaxy. The threat was implicit but clear. Humanity had developed weapons that could target the fundamental physics that all galactic technology depended upon. They could potentially cripple every advanced civilization in the galaxy if they chose to do so. Admiral Cathara faced the most difficult decision in Zephyrian military history: admit defeat to a primitive species, or risk the possibility that humans would unleash their physics-altering technology throughout Zephyrian space, potentially collapsing an empire that had stood for 3 millennia. The silence stretched across space as both species waited to see whether arrogance or survival instinct would prove stronger. In the alien admiral's decision-making process, Admiral Cathara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching her instruments register the impossible. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian expansion, no species had ever forced the Empire to consider retreat. The very concept was alien to everything she had been taught about galactic hierarchy and technological supremacy. Yet here she was, facing a species that had somehow learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of reality itself. Admiral, Commander Velox reported quietly, long-range communications with High Command are being disrupted. The human space-time alterations are interfering with our quantum entanglement networks. This was perhaps the most terrifying aspect of humanity's demonstration. The Zephyrian Empire relied on instantaneous communication across vast distances to maintain their control over 47 star systems. If humans could disrupt those networks, they could potentially fragment the Empire's ability to coordinate responses across their territory. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through the communication channels again, but now it carried a different tone. Instead of threatening, she sounded almost educational, like a professor explaining complex concepts to students. Admiral, we've been analyzing your fleet's quantum signatures while our array has been active. Your technology is remarkably elegant, but it depends on stable quantum vacuum conditions that exist throughout most of the galaxy. President Santos joined the transmission, her diplomatic training evident in every word. What Dr. Tanaka is saying, Admiral, is that your Empire's entire technological foundation becomes vulnerable if space itself stops cooperating with your physics? Admiral Cathara felt the weight of implications, settling on her shoulders like a collapsing star. If humanity could project their space-time alterations to other systems, they could theoretically render every Zephyrian vessel, every orbital platform, every technological achievement of 3 millennia completely useless. "You're threatening the entire galactic order," she said finally. "Are we?" President Santos asked. "We're threatening to defend ourselves against unprovoked invasion. The fact that our defensive capabilities might affect other systems is an unfortunate side effect of being forced to develop weapons capable of stopping a technologically superior enemy." The human response revealed another aspect of their strategic thinking that the Zephyrians hadn't anticipated. While the Empire thought in terms of conquest and dominance, humanity approached the situation as a problem to be solved. They had analyzed the threat, developed countermeasures, and now they were offering a solution that served everyone's interests. Commander Mitchell's voice came through on military frequencies. "Admiral, our sensors show your fleet's life support systems are beginning to fluctuate. The quantum alterations are affecting more than just your weapons and engines." This was humanity's most subtle psychological pressure. They weren't just demonstrating their ability to destroy the Zephyrian fleet. They were showing that they could kill everyone aboard without firing another shot. The aliens' own life support technology was becoming unreliable as space around them shifted to favor human physics over galactic standards. "Admiral, Kethera made a decision that would have been inconceivable when she first entered the Sol system. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this technology aggressively?" President Santos's answer revealed the depth of human strategic planning. "Admiral, we've spent the last 18 months preparing for this conversation. We understand that the galaxy contains thousands of species, most of whom have done nothing to threaten Earth. We have no interest in destabilizing galactic civilization." Dr. Tanaka added technical details that made the offer more concrete. "The stellar resonance array requires enormous energy expenditure to operate. We can maintain current conditions for approximately 72 hours before our power reserves are depleted. After that, normal space-time conditions will automatically resume." The information was both reassuring and terrifying. Reassuring because it suggested humanity couldn't maintain their physics alterations indefinitely. Terrifying because it implied they could probably build more arrays if they needed to extend their capabilities. "However," President Santos continued, "we've also developed a method for creating quantum resonance beacons, small devices that could be placed strategically throughout the galaxy to extend our array's influence indefinitely." The threat was clear without being explicitly stated. Humanity could potentially plant devices that would give them the ability to alter physics anywhere in Zephyrian territory. The Empire's technological superiority could be neutralized permanently if humans chose to deploy their new capabilities aggressively, Admiral. Kethera found herself in a position no Zephyrian commander had ever faced, negotiating from weakness with a species they had intended to conquer. "What specific terms are you proposing?" "Simple," President Santos replied. "The Zephyrian Empire acknowledges that the Sol system is off-limits to any form of military intervention. In exchange, humanity agrees to limit the deployment of quantum resonance technology to our own solar system, for peaceful defensive purposes only." Commander Velox was monitoring communications across the Zephyrian fleet, and his reports were increasingly troubling. "Admiral, several ship commanders are requesting permission to withdraw to safe distance. Engineering teams report that continued exposure to altered space-time conditions may result in permanent damage to our vessels." The practical reality was becoming impossible to ignore. Even if Admiral Kethera chose to continue fighting, her fleet was being systematically disabled by environmental conditions that favored human technology. Her ships were becoming less effective while humanity's vessels grew stronger. But the Admiral faced a deeper problem than military defeat. If she returned to Zephyrian space with reports that a primitive species had developed the ability to neutralize advanced galactic technology, it would fundamentally challenge the Empire's basis for existence. The Zephyrians ruled through technological superiority. If that superiority could be negated, their entire governmental structure became questionable. Dr. Tanaka seemed to understand the Admiral's dilemma. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications indicating that other galactic powers have been monitoring this engagement. Word of our capabilities is already spreading throughout your territory." This was humanity's final psychological pressure. The secret was already out. Other species throughout the galaxy now knew that the supposedly invincible Zephyrian Empire had been stymied by a young species using impossible technology. The Admiral could choose to continue fighting and likely lose more ships. Or she could negotiate a face-saving withdrawal that preserved what remained of Zephyrian prestige. "We propose an additional element to our agreement," President Santos added. "Humanity is willing to share certain aspects of our quantum mechanics research with the Zephyrian Empire, specifically technologies that might enhance your existing capabilities without compromising our defensive advantages." The offer was brilliant in its psychological appeal. Instead of simply demanding withdrawal, humanity was offering to transform a military defeat into a technological exchange that could benefit both species. Admiral Cathara could return to her superiors not as a defeated commander, but as a diplomat who had secured access to revolutionary new physics. Commander Velox was now reporting critical failures in multiple systems. "Admiral, we must make a decision soon. Our fleet cannot survive extended exposure to these altered space-time conditions." Admiral Cathara stared at the tactical displays showing her fleet's declining capability while humanity's forces grew stronger by the hour. In her long military career, she had never faced a situation where continued fighting would guarantee not just defeat, but the destruction of everything she had sworn to protect. "Very well," she said finally. "We will discuss terms." The negotiations between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire took place in the strangest diplomatic setting in galactic history. Admiral Cathara's flagship hung in space that had been fundamentally altered by human technology, while representatives from both species worked out the terms that would prevent the first major war between Earth and an alien civilization. President Santos materialized as a hologram on the Zephyrian bridge, her image stabilized by quantum entanglement systems that were barely functioning in the altered space-time conditions. Around her, Admiral Cathara's crew worked desperately to maintain basic ship operations while their technology fought against physics that no longer favored their designs. "Admiral," President Santos began, "before we discuss specific terms, I think it's important that both our species understand what happened here today." Dr. Tanaka's voice joined the conversation from the Lunar Array control room. The Stellar Resonance Array doesn't just alter local physics randomly. It creates what we call technological selection pressure, conditions that favor innovation, adaptation, and unconventional thinking while disadvantaging rigid, established systems. Admiral Cathara's compound eyes focused on the human scientist. "You're saying your weapon specifically targets technological stagnation?" "In a sense, yes," Dr. Tanaka confirmed. "We realize that the Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength, your 3,000 years of technological refinement, was also a potential weakness. Your systems are optimized for stable, predictable physics. When we introduce quantum uncertainty into local spacetime, your technology couldn't adapt quickly enough." This revelation was more disturbing to Admiral Cathara than any direct military threat. Humanity had analyzed the Empire's psychological and technological foundations and developed weapons specifically designed to exploit their particular type of advancement. It suggested a level of strategic thinking that went far beyond simple defensive preparations. "Commander." Velox was monitoring the human fleet and reporting phenomena that challenged his understanding of engineering principles. "Admiral, the human vessels are actually becoming more efficient as their local spacetime conditions continue to fluctuate. It's as if their technology was designed to thrive in unstable physics environments." President Santos smiled at the observation. "Commander Velox is correct. Human technology has always developed under pressure. We've never had the luxury of stable, predictable conditions. Our entire technological philosophy is based on systems that can adapt, improvise, and function even when fundamental conditions change. This was humanity's deepest strategic insight. While the Zephyrians had developed technology for a stable, well-ordered galaxy where physics remained constant, humans had developed technology for a chaotic, dangerous universe where conditions could change without warning. Earth's violent history had inadvertently prepared humanity for warfare, unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. "Our proposed treaty has three main elements," President Santos continued. "First, the Zephyrian Empire agrees that the Sol system is permanently off-limits to military intervention. Second, humanity agrees to limit quantum resonance technology to defensive applications within our own territory. Third, we establish a technological exchange program that benefits both our species." Admiral Cathara studied the terms carefully. What specific technologies would be exchanged? Dr. Tanaka provided the details. We're willing to share our research into adaptive engineering principles, methods for creating technology that can function under varying physical conditions. In exchange, we would like access to your advances in energy efficiency and material science. The exchange was designed to address each species' technological weaknesses without compromising their strategic advantages. Humanity would gain access to Zephyrian refinement and efficiency, while the Empire would learn adaptation and flexibility. Neither side would gain the ability to perfectly replicate the other's capabilities, but both would become stronger. There's also an element of mutual defense, President Santos added. If either of our species encounters threats that require unconventional responses, we agree to consider cooperative solutions. This clause was humanity's insurance policy against future alien invasions. By establishing a precedent for cooperation with a major galactic power, Earth was creating a framework that might discourage other species from attempting conquest. The Zephyrian Empire's reluctant alliance would serve as a warning to potential aggressors that humanity had developed dangerous capabilities and powerful friends. Admiral Cathara realized that accepting these terms would require her to present a complete strategic reversal to Zephyrian High Command. She would need to explain how a routine conquest had become a diplomatic negotiation, and how the Empire's first military defeat had been transformed into a potentially beneficial alliance. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't develop more aggressive applications of quantum resonance technology? She asked. President Santos's answer revealed the sophistication of human diplomatic planning. Admiral, we're going to provide you with complete technical specifications for our current quantum resonance capabilities. Your scientists will be able to monitor our research and verify that we're limiting ourselves to defensive applications. The transparency was shocking. Most galactic powers guarded their military secrets jealously. Humanity was offering to share their most advanced weapons technology with a former enemy, demonstrating a level of confidence that suggested they had even more powerful capabilities in reserve. Dr. Tanaka added crucial technical details. The monitoring systems we're proposing work both ways. Humanity will also receive data about Zephyrian military developments. This creates a mutual transparency that makes aggressive actions by either side immediately detectable. Commander Velox was studying the proposed monitoring systems and discovering their elegant simplicity. Admiral, their quantum entanglement networks would actually improve our own communications efficiency while providing the transparency they're requesting. The human proposal was structured so that compliance benefited both species while violation would be immediately obvious. It was diplomacy designed by engineers, creating incentive structures that made cooperation more profitable than conflict. There's one final element to our proposal, President Santos said, her tone becoming more serious. We want to establish a joint research facility for studying physics applications that could benefit galactic civilization. Both our species have developed approaches that the galaxy hasn't seen before. Admiral Cathara understood the deeper implications. Humanity was offering to institutionalize their relationship with the Empire, creating ongoing cooperation that would make future conflicts increasingly unlikely. The joint research facility would also serve as an early warning system, alerting both sides to technological developments that might threaten their agreement. If we accept these terms, Admiral Cathara said slowly, how do we explain to the rest of the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire has entered into an alliance with a species we intended to conquer? President Santos's answer demonstrated humanity's understanding of galactic politics. Simple, Admiral. You tell them that the Empire has discovered a species with complementary technological capabilities, and that cooperation serves Zephyrian interests better than conquest. The framework allowed both species to save face while establishing a new type of relationship in galactic politics. The Zephyrian Empire could present the agreement as a strategic alliance rather than a military defeat, while humanity could claim they had successfully negotiated with a major galactic power. We'll need time to present these terms to High Command, Admiral Cathara said. Of course, President Santos agreed. We'll maintain current quantum resonance levels until your leadership has had time to consider our proposal. But Admiral, please understand that this offer has a limited time frame. The longer we maintain these altered space-time conditions, the more difficult it becomes to return to normal physics. The deadline was both practical and psychological. While the stellar resonance array genuinely required enormous energy to maintain, the time pressure also encouraged quick decision-making. Before other galactic powers could interfere with the negotiations, Admiral Cathera felt the weight of galactic history on her shoulders as she prepared to transmit humanity's terms to the Zephyrian High Command. The decision she was about to request would either establish a new model for galactic diplomacy or potentially trigger the largest military conflict in recorded history. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Cathara stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Quantum Research Station, watching human and Zephyrian scientists work together in laboratories that would have been impossible to imagine before first contact. The station orbited Earth at a distance carefully calculated to remain within the influence of the stellar resonance array while providing neutral ground for both species. A response from Zephyrian High Command had taken exactly 18 hours of debate before reaching a unanimous decision. Accept humanity's terms completely. The Empire's ruling council had realized that the alternative to cooperation was potentially facing quantum resonance, weapons deployed throughout their territory by a species that had already proven their willingness to defend themselves with impossible technology. Dr. Tanaka floated past the observation window in the station's zero-gravity research section, working alongside Commander Velox to test applications of hybrid technology that combined Zephyrian precision with human adaptability. Their joint research had already yielded innovations that neither species could have achieved independently. The preliminary results from the hybrid propulsion systems are remarkable. Commander Velox reported to Admiral Cathera, "Human adaptive engineering principles have improved our engine efficiency by 37%, while our manufacturing techniques have increased their system reliability by over 60%. But the technological exchange was only one aspect of the transformation that had occurred since the Treaty of Sol. Word of humanity's victory had spread throughout galactic civilization, fundamentally altering the balance of power that had existed for millennia. Species that had lived under Zephyrian dominance were suddenly questioning whether the Empire's technological superiority was as absolute as they had believed. President Santos materialized as a hologram on the station's command deck, joining Admiral Cathara for their weekly diplomatic briefing. "Admiral, we've received communication requests from 14 different galactic civilizations in the past week alone. It seems our little demonstration has attracted attention throughout this region of space." The attention was both opportunity and challenge. While many species were interested in learning about quantum resonance technology, others saw humanity's capabilities as a threat to galactic stability. The balance of power that had maintained peace for thousands of years was shifting, and not everyone was comfortable with the implications. The hegemony of rings has formally requested a demonstration of quantum resonance principles, Admiral Cathera reported. They're concerned about the security implications of physics-altering weapons. This was humanity's ongoing challenge. Having demonstrated their ability to neutralize advanced galactic technology, they now faced the task of convincing other civilizations that their intentions were purely defensive. Every species in the galaxy was simultaneously fascinated by and terrified of weapons that could render their own technology obsolete. Dr. Tanaka joined the conversation via quantum entanglement link from her laboratory. "President Santos, we've completed our analysis of the Galactic Technology Survey. Most civilizations use variations of the same fundamental physics that the Zephyrians employ. Our quantum resonance principles could theoretically affect any species that relies on stable space-time conditions." The revelation was sobering. Humanity had developed weapons that weren't just effective against one enemy, but potentially against any advanced technological civilization in the galaxy. The responsibility that came with such capabilities was unprecedented in human history. "Which brings us to our long-term challenge," President Santos said. "How do we maintain galactic stability while ensuring Earth's security?" Admiral Cathera had spent considerable time thinking about this question. The Zephyrian High Command believes the answer lies in selective technology sharing, not full quantum resonance capabilities, but adaptive engineering principles that could help other species develop more flexible technology. This was the diplomatic solution that had emerged from months of careful negotiation. Rather than keeping their capabilities secret, humanity would share the underlying principles that made their technology more adaptable, helping other civilizations become more resilient without providing them with weapons-grade quantum manipulation abilities. The approach served multiple purposes. It demonstrated human goodwill while establishing Earth as a crucial partner for technological development throughout the galaxy. Species that benefited from human engineering principles would have incentives to maintain friendly relationships with humanity, creating a network of allies bound together by mutual technological dependence. The first batch of engineering exchange students arrived yesterday, Dr. Tanaka reported. Representatives from 12 different civilizations, all eager to learn adaptive design principles. Our teaching facilities are operating at capacity. The educational program was humanity's masterstroke of diplomatic engineering. By training scientists from other species in human methodologies, Earth was creating a generation of galactic researchers who understood both human and alien approaches to technology. These individuals would return to their home civilizations as bridges between human and galactic scientific communities. Commander Velox had been observing the educational exchanges with professional interest. Admiral, the human teaching methods are unlike anything in our academic traditions. They emphasize experimentation, failure analysis, and iterative improvement rather than theoretical perfection. This difference in educational philosophy represented the fundamental distinction between human and galactic approaches to technology. While most civilizations taught students to master established principles, humanity taught them to question, modify, and improve upon existing knowledge. The result was a generation of alien scientists who thought more like humans while retaining their own species' technological strengths. We've also received formal diplomatic recognition from the Galactic Commerce Federation, President Santos announced. Earth is now considered a full partner in interstellar trade networks. The economic implications were staggering. Humanity had gone from an unknown species to a crucial partner in galactic civilization in less than 6 months. Earth's unique technological capabilities, combined with their willingness to share knowledge, had made them valuable allies rather than conquered subjects. Admiral Cathera reviewed reports from across Zephyrian territory, showing the effects of humanity's emergence on galactic politics. Several species that were previously subjugated by the Empire have requested negotiations for greater autonomy. They're using your success as precedent for demanding better treatment. This was perhaps the most significant long-term consequence of humanity's victory. By proving that the Zephyrian Empire could be challenged successfully, Earth had inspired other species to question the existing galactic order. The result was a gradual democratization of galactic politics as formerly dominant civilizations were forced to negotiate rather than simply impose their will. How is the Empire adapting to these changes? President Santos asked. Better than expected, Admiral Cathara admitted. The technological exchanges with humanity have actually strengthened our capabilities while forcing us to develop more flexible approaches to diplomacy. The High Command now views the Treaty of Seoul as the beginning of a new era of Zephyrian influence based on cooperation rather than domination. The transformation of the Zephyrian Empire from conquerors to partners represented a fundamental shift in galactic civilization. Their technological expertise, combined with human adaptive capabilities, was creating new possibilities for exploration, research, and development that benefited every species willing to participate in cooperative frameworks. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through with excitement as she reported the latest research breakthrough. President Santos, Admiral Cathera, we've achieved stable quantum entanglement across galactic distances using hybrid human Zephyrian technology. The implications for instantaneous communication throughout the galaxy are extraordinary. The achievement represented the future that had become possible through cooperation rather than conflict. Technologies that neither species could have developed independently were emerging from their joint research, promising advances that would benefit all galactic civilizations. As Admiral Cathera watched human and Zephyrian researchers celebrate their breakthrough together, she reflected on how completely her understanding of galactic politics had changed. The species she had intended to conquer had instead become partners in creating a future neither civilization could have imagined alone. President Santos smiled as she observed the celebration. In the research laboratories, Admiral, I think this is what we call a win-win situation. The simple human phrase captured something that had been missing from galactic politics for millennia. The possibility that conflict could be transformed into cooperation, that differences could become strengths, and that the galaxy's future could be built through partnership rather than domination. In the months that followed, the Sol system became a pilgrimage destination for species throughout the galaxy, all eager to learn how a young Civ's conquerors are conquered, but as partners in building something entirely new.